The yard line.
Welcome to our third Audible of the season. Tuesday, week 2 of the preseason. We will be looking at Thursdays and Fridays games. And I am joined alongside my guys, Donnie RightSide and the whale capper, Donnie RightSide. Tuesday afternoon, how you doing this week?
Doing good, and I was happy because we did get a DM over the weekend. Somebody astutely said in there, the autumn wind is a raider, and we were able to pick up that victory. So very fun weekend of week 1. Looking forward to week 2. What's more fun than week 2, 3, 4, and then the regular season, Jimmy?
Yeah, the autumn wind is a raider was so funny. And the author of that quote joining us right now, whale capper. Happy Tuesday to you. How you doing?
Oh, so good, man. If week 2 of the preseason goes like week 1, we can just call it a season and retire, huh, guys?
Oh man, I fixed everything. Well, I lost on the under with the Saints game, so I was looking 2-5 going into Saturday, but went 4-1 on Saturday. So I'm back at 500, 6-6. Rafa, will you pop up the NFL preseason record? Okay, we do not have the preseason record. Okay, that's fine. But I am back to 6-6, down 0.16 units, but feel good about it. Let's get to work right now, shall we? I mean, if we want, you could talk about some takeaways from week 1, but I believe the takeaways will sort of come in while we break down. It's fine. It's fine. We'll break down as we break down the games. But why don't we see, did one or two things really stand out to you, Donnie RightSide?
Looking over the weekend, just the toughness of actually betting the preseason. And sometimes you can absolutely nail a play and just have some, fickle moves go against your late on teams that are punting away or just going for it, because nobody wants to. The best thing about preseason, Jimmy, is the players don't want it, the coaches don't want it, and the fans don't want it. But the NFL says, yes, everybody needs it, because nobody wants to go longer. We don't want to get a 2-point conversion in the fourth quarter to extend it into overtime. But it's kind of interesting because the one thing I do want to still take away is, when teams really care about this and when teams really don't care, it's pretty evident.
It is evident. Speaking about teams caring, the quote from Harbaugh when they said that he'd won 14 straight and they mentioned the 2019 loss to Atlanta, September 3rd, 2015. He said, "I'm still mad about that one. We like to win. I think winning is better than losing, and we don't do much different than anybody else." It's just nuts. The dichotomy between some of these coaches caring and some of these coaches not caring is absolutely nuts, Donnie. And that's why I understand there's edges to be found in the preseason. Well, Capper, did you take away anything from week 1?
Yeah, so I thought the quarterback play from the young quarterbacks around the league was pretty impressive. You may want to attribute that to just that we have some good young quarterbacks in the NFL to look forward to this season, or it might be that the coaches, are kind of upping their game in terms of their offensive play calling and their approach. But it's got me pretty positive for the entertainment value we're going to get in this NFL season. And it made overs super lucrative. I mean, the overs were coming in hot and heavy over the week 1 preseason games. I didn't really see much of an adjustment here for week 2, even though we typically see week 2 come in a little bit higher scoring totals. Not really many adjustments across the board. We saw one, Jags Eagles, which we're going to get into in a minute here. That total already bet up 3 points was interesting. I think the other major key takeaway, the referees are in preseason form. Oh my goodness, some absolutely awful, refereeing in week 1. A lot of tentative, a lot of cautious, flags being thrown, and that was a little bit disappointing. I wish we had a little bit more fairly officiated games, but hopefully they get their act together as we cruise through preseason here.
Yes, it was nice to see the challenges. Ian Cameron Babano put out a fun tweet about how you guys are finally following the Canadian Football League. You should be able to challenge. I'm not saying go to 3 downs and widen your field and extend your field, although you can. But I do, and bigger balls, don't forget that. But I do like that you can challenge defensive pass interference. Well, why don't we get started? Ski Profit in the house, Clint Richardson, A. Hilly, Justin Grammer, Larry Edwards, Oscar Valverde, Ramirez, Walla Dos. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Let's get to work with the Eagles Jaguars that you alluded to. Whale Capper. Jaguars opened at -3 at -110. Now -3, -105. Not much difference there. Total opened at 38. And it was interesting when the total opened at 38. BetOnline had it at plus 110 to the under. But there's been a 3-point drop to 35. Let's talk about this spot. Nate Sudfeld broke his left wrist on a late hit. Sudfeld was looking good. I guess we expected him to be the backup. Donnie can tell us more as he knows this team inside and out. 75-yard touchdown pass. Finished 10 for 18 for 177 yards. Cody Kessler, the great Cody Kessler, came in and, looked bad. Looked bad as always. Clayton Thorson, 2 for 9 with an interception. I guess that's what we're going to see moving forward. Doug Peterson said the injury is not season ending and they don't plan on adding another quarterback. So Andre Dillard started at left tackle. Peters rested. There's some good things. Jordan Howard, defensive tackle. Malik Jackson were the only projected starters to play, along with Dallas Goedert. Ravens beat up this Jaguars team, destroyed the Jaguars team. It was a very ugly start for the Jaguars. Gardner Minshew out of Washington State looked awful. The Jaguars gave up 4 sacks, completed 10 passes. Minshew looked bad. Tanner Lee came in and looked worse. The Jaguars looked very bad. Donnie, do you think we're going to see something different from the Jaguars? And do you think the Eagles can move forward with Kessler and Thorson?
This is a I don't know if you looked at all the teams in the NFL, and if you take away, look, Nick Foles, pretty good quarterback. We'll see how he does in Jacksonville. Carson Wentz, a very good quarterback. We'll see how he does this year. But when you take those two guys away from this game, Jimmy, you saw what you saw last week in the Philadelphia Eagles backup quarterbacks, which Sudfeld played well. And the key point is he's not playing this week. He's injured. He'll be out probably for at least a month into the regular season, which leads you with a full game of Cody Kessler and Clayton Thorson. 2 guys that look like they had no idea what the hell was going on out there. And then you flip it over to Jacksonville and say, hey, well, it can't be as bad as what the Eagles are getting out of their backup quarterback play. If you watched any part of that Baltimore Ravens game, they were absolutely thoroughly embarrassed in that game. So if we take a look at week 2, maybe one series from Carson Wentz where they hand it off twice, Jimmy, and then throw a rocket screen just to get him out of there. And the same thing with Nick Foles. Maybe Nick Foles plays, maybe a quarter, if that. But after that, it's going to be a really bad football game, which is kind of interesting when you see that over-under at 38, because week 2, you tend to see more starters. You should see a little bit more crisp play. So we're seeing a little bit higher numbers in the total. But this one is dropping because I think, Jimmy, everybody's looking at last week going, what the hell do you have looking for? Like, who's going to step up and play quarterback to move the football? And yes, the great point that Will Capper brought up, the referees. You know what I actually think in weeks 1 and 2? It's like an extended, time off air. Like if Will Capper hasn't been on the air, Jimmy, you haven't been on the air, you took a week off, or I take a week off, and you just want to get back in the flow. Like, let me just go for an hour show and just, test my voice out because the camera's up here. If you throw the flag, we all have to meet because it's still a dress rehearsal for the refs as well going over it, and that plays a big key. This is going to be one of the more uglier offensive games of the week, I really think.
It has to be. And moving forward, do you think that Kessler should be able to get the job done, Donnie, before we go over to Will Capper? Can Kessler get the job done? These Jaguars look awful. I'm sure they're going to be better, but is Kessler somebody that you can count on moving forward in case something goes wrong with Wentz?
No, I mean, and it gets back to the point because, last week was such an overreaction when Sudfeld went down. Oh, my God, the sky's falling. Well, if your starting quarterback goes down in the NFL, there's a really good chance you're missing the playoffs anyway. So who cares? I don't care if Brian Mitchell comes back and runs like a wildcat offense. You're not going to the playoffs at that point. Cody Kessler just needs to be there, Jimmy, and run the scout team in practice because if Wentz goes down, it's a wrap anyway. Doesn't matter who the secondary quarterback for the Philadelphia Eagles is this year.
Yeah, no, I hear that. Whale Capper, the Jaguars looked absolutely awful. Just awful. How do you break this game down?
Well, on the backup quarterback situation for Philly for a second, I mean, if history has taught us anything, if you bring a backup quarterback in for the Eagles, they have no chance of making the playoffs. They have no chance of winning the Super Bowl. So write them off. But no, I do agree that it's a very different situation when you're not bringing in a guy with the caliber of quarterback that is Nick Foles. And I think this is a good spot for both teams to try to do a little bit better than what we saw from them in preseason week 1. Two pretty embarrassing performances really from the second and third units here. And we saw with the Jaguars, they have a pretty thin offensive weaponry from top to bottom as it is. And it turns out you go down that depth chart, it gets real bad. And I would think that if there's a side to look here, we're looking for the Jaguars, because being at home and having gotten shut out in week one is not a good way to start your preseason. It's not a good way to get your new offensive coordinator, get him a little bit of momentum. And, now here you go. You got DeFilippo calling plays against his old team in the Eagles. I would expect you see some pretty crisp, some pretty sharp play calling, some pretty crisp quarterback play early here from the Jaguars, from Nick Foles, maybe more than one series out of him as they try to develop some rhythm. And I think the Jaguars are the side, even though I don't love laying more than a point or two here in the preseason. I think laying 3 for the Jaguars is a decent look, because Cody Kessler, he's going to get a lot of snaps for these Eagles, but they really have no incentive to try to put anything on paper, to try to put anything on tape here to kind of tip their hands as to what they're going to do this season. So they can truly go through the motions and kind of get ready for week one, whereas some of these other teams need to start developing some rhythm and some chemistry, and that includes the Jaguars with their new offensive coordinator.
David Stewart saying big money on the Jags. I think that we all need to have our ears perked when Whale Capper really likes a spot. Really likes a spot. Not just so lukewarm likes a spot, because your looks on the Titans on Thursday and then backing the Raiders and Niners on Saturday were very helpful for me, because my own personal looks have been awful. But that was just a lukewarm belief in the Jaguars. Do you think you're going to be making any moves? Why don't we go with Donnie? Are you going to make a move on this game, Donnie, at all? Eagles, Jags?
No, probably not. It's actually more of a nostalgic game for us here. We get to see Nick Foles, and we can pay him homage one more time, and then who gives a damn about Nick Foles for the rest of the regular season for us up here in Philadelphia. But the 3 sticks out a little bit, maybe if it's a little bit less, but, I agree. What I see out of the Eagles coming into this game, nothing gives me that, perk up and say, you know what, the Eagles really want to get out and correct some things. They're just looking to get to the regular season healthy. You also saw Lane Johnson come up with a mysterious camp injury where his knee hurt. So then you get back to saying, all right, if Lane Johnson's not going to play, how long are we really rolling Carson Wentz out there? It's almost like this team is all in for game 1 versus the Redskins and just looking to get by here in Jacksonville. If I'm playing anything, probably would be the Jags. Same way last week, it was the only play to be on the Titans.
And because of this issue with Kessler having to come in, I mean, I have not made any Eagles futures yet. And the more that I spend time looking at the futures, the more value I see with the Eagles. I've completely jumped on. Quickly, Donnie, would you say wait, make sure Wentz is healthy and ready to go?
For what, like the regular season win totals, that aspect?
Yeah, or conference.
He's ready. I mean,
Super
he's
Bowl.
from all intents and purposes, he's ready. He looks good. He's back in action. There's no ill effects on the back, anything on the knee. He's not even wearing the sleeve most days on his knee when he goes out to practice. They're just saying, you know what? We're not putting a guy that we just gave like $100 million guarantee to in a preseason game with maybe a couple backup tackles out there. That's all the Eagles waiting on. As soon as Lane Johnson comes back, as soon as that line is viable, he's going to play in the preseason. But they're all in for week 1. Just get there healthy. You're not going to see the Darren Sproles. You're not going to run these running backs into the line. Heck, even the linebacker position is up for grab. They don't want to get any more injuries back there. This is just a team in wait-and-see approach where I think Jacksonville and that whole Tom Coughlin probably came in the locker room, even though I don't know what the locker room thing where they were dancing around, throwing chairs and, elbow dropping the Jaguar chairs in the locker room. I don't know what that was about, but I think Jacksonville has a little bit more to play for than the Eagles here, Jimmy.
They certainly do. They certainly have more to play for after that embarrassment in week 1 and the points that Whale Capper laid out with the offensive coordinator needing to feel better about himself. But can you do that with Minshew? I don't know. I don't know if you can, Minshew. Do you think you might make a move on these Jags, Whale Capper?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's the right side here. And, ideally, some kind of, news comes out that, we're going to see more than Wentz than we thought. And, you get a little bit of action and it brings the line down a little bit, because I would like a little bit better number than -3. And for whatever it's worth, kind of going back through the preseason data a little bit more carefully in preparation for this show and kind of being ready to talk about these sort of things. It's been pretty clear that, 3 is not as key of a number in the preseason. 1 and 2, surprisingly, get a lot more, come in a lot closer here in the preseason than what we see with 3, and that's mostly just because, like, kind of like Donnie laid out, like, these teams aren't playing for overtime. They're not playing to win at all costs. And a lot of times, if you can kind of go for 2 and oops, we didn't make it, and then lo and behold, like, game's over. Like, yeah, you're seeing games land on margin of victory of 1 and 2 a lot more often than you would see in the regular season, which is kind of interesting, which makes me a little bit more nervous about even laying 3. But all that said, I think the Jags do try to get right in the spot. I think the Jags will have a little bit more motivation and a little bit more incentive to put some of their cards on the table, and I think they're the right look in this game.
Yeah, motivation is, we talk about it nonstop in the preseason. This certainly feels like a spot where the Eagles have no reason to put out any kind of real effort, where the Jaguars definitely do. Tomo says Jags should be better this year. Lots of injuries to the offensive line last year. The Jags, from a future perspective, I want nothing to do with. Nothing at all to do with. Let's move on to Jets at Falcons. Falcons open at -1 and -120. Right now at 5 dimes, it's a pick'em of sorts. I mean, there's no spread, but it's -130 for the Falcons. So BetOnline still at Falcons -1. All other books are at -1.5. Heritage at -2. Total opened at 42. Now BetOnline is at 44. All the other books are at 44.5. Jets opened the preseason 31-22 loss to the Giants. Darnold looked very good. That opening series was nice. 75 yards, 7 plays. It was nice. Hit passes of 32 and 28 yards. Found Jamison Crowder for a TD. Le'Veon Bell warmed up in uniform. What an honor to have him put on the jersey. To you Jets fans. Wow.
Ugly jerseys.
Yeah. Simeon looked good, I thought. 13 for 16, 77 yards. Luke Falk, 9 for 11, 69 yards. These Falcons, I mean, we've talked so much about them not caring. Starting with Dan Quinn, who's so intense. Such an intense guy to not care in the preseason. But is this a spot that you might want to back them, Donnie RightSide?
I still don't want to back them, but what I was actually intrigued by last week when you watched that Atlanta game versus the Dolphins, where they actually played a pretty decent, 3 quarters in that game. And then the Matt Sims show starts to take over, and you get what you get at that point, where you see a guy that's been out of football and just comes into camp and he really can't execute. But the one interesting thing is Max Schaub, he must have gotten written the riot act saying, you perform like that again, we're just going to straight up get rid of you and we'll look on, because he actually played a pretty decent game in there, and a competent game, which you're going to have to lean on that same MO. I think the Jets are a little bit younger, have a little bit better of a starting lineup that's going to go. And if anything in the past that we want to take to the future is that the Atlanta Falcons don't care. They don't care about the final score. Again, not even to say from that first game, like, ooh, they were brutal, Matt Schaub was bad, and they get, the late interception, which caused them to lose that game. Last week was a microcosm with everything. It's a tie game. 99% of the people probably said, no, let's work on our punt and just see if we can get a stop and get out of here. They go for it on 4th down inside their own 20-yard line just so they can get out of town. I can't put my money on a team that literally says we do not care what the final score is here. I lean Jets in this one here.
It's looking already at this week too. I know I messed up on Thursday. There was some, especially in the Bears-Panthers game. When I was watching, I was like, "Oh, what a mistake!" Not believing in the Panthers backups, which I should have done. But looking at these games, I find it quite a bit more difficult. Even though I'm only sitting at 6-6, I find sides here quite a bit more difficult in week 2, especially when we're talking about games 48 hours away on Thursday, where we're still going to get a lot of information about playing time before then. But Whale Capper, I don't feel comfortable with this Jets-Falcons spot at all. I find the Falcons just a huge question mark with trying to figure out whether Dan Quinn is going to care a tiny bit more moving forward, because that was a nice point on Schaub. A very nice point Donnie made on Schaub. Whale Capper, you see anything here, Jets-Falcons?
Yeah, this is a line that this is an easy stay away from the sides because of the points you brought up, and I think the fact that it honestly looked like Dan Quinn wanted to lose, which is weird, and he may be using losing in the preseason as an opportunity to kind of specifically try to get the most out of some of his players, like he did with Schaub, but so given that notion, I don't think you can take a full game side here and expect to have an edge. And you go to why not the Jets then? If the Falcons are intent on losing, the Jets have been kind of quietly accruing a number of injuries, especially on the defensive side of the ball as we've kind of, crept through, this week 2 and week 3 of training camp here. And I wouldn't be surprised at all if they're a little bit cautious on who they throw out there on defense. Their secondary is really depleted right now. They could give up some passing yards in this one, and it could get ugly. I'm looking for an over in this one if I'm playing anything. And actually, I kind of do like the over in this one. This is kind of fits the narrative of, the offenses are getting a little bit more comfortable, a little bit more reps. I thought the Jets offense was pretty darn impressive last week. I like Adam Gase's scheme. I like the weapons he's got. He's got a couple of, second and third unit guys that can absolutely contribute in the through the passing game. And the Falcons have shown us nothing. Even, they're being very conscientious, having taken some serious licks last year after they lost Deion Jones and Keanu Neal. They've got those guys, they've got their key pieces wrapped in bubble wrap, keeping them fresh for the regular season. So I don't think we see a lot of defense in this one. This has a total landing in the 40s the way I handicap it. So I'll take the over in this Jets Falcons. Staying away from the side though.
Staying away from the side, liking the over. It makes a lot of sense, and the market has gone with it. And Walla Waldo saying, yup, injuries aplenty for these Jets. And we've had some extra cappers join us. Teddy B in the house backing his Vikings, a team that Donnie does believe in. Casey Koenig, Sam Moctezuma, Justin De Leon, Capper John, the Chicago sports informant, joining us. Nice work. Okay, well, let's move on to Bengals at Redskins. Redskins open at -2.5. Some books are hanging -3s. Others are -3.5. Depends where you shop. Totals at 41. Most books not moving except for Bet Online, who's hanging that 41, but -125 to the under. Redskins lost 30-10 to the Browns. Keenum, three-way competition with McCoy and Haskins. Keenum started through a 46-yard TD pass, but that was just pretty much a fluke situation, miscommunication by the Cleveland defense. Finished 4 for 9 for 60 yards. You take that one spot away, then he looked bad. McCoy was kept out, still recovering from surgery. Haskins, underthrew passes, did not look good, threw 2 interceptions, 8 for 14. Washington was called for 4 holding penalties on the opening drive. 3 were declined, but the Redskins were called for 7 total infractions. Both teams started off badly. Bengals opened at 38-17 loss, and Zach Taylor's first taste of losing on the Bengals sideline. Andy Dalton, series of third downs he converted. 14-play, 75-yard TD march looked pretty good without A.J. Green, without Mixon, without Bernard. Dalton 7 for 9 for 80 yards. Ryan Finley played okay. Driscoll did not play. Ryan Finley went 13 for 18, 109 yards, TD, and another interception. Bengals at Redskins, 2 teams that we expect to do a lot of losing, did exactly that week 1. Donnie RightSide, Bengals, Redskins.
Yeah, it's an interesting one here. Now, the whole concept that we were trying to look at the Redskins, right, to say, we like it because there's a quarterback battle. Well, I need a quarterback battle. Like, if Colt McCoy, from reading the tea leaves here, doesn't look like he's going to play again this week, then that's going to leave that same setup, Case Keenum with Dwayne Haskins coming in, which looked horrific last week, and I think that's going to continue here. You have the young coach trying to get back on that winning mentality. Jay Gruden's looking to save his job here. He's just trying to say, you know what? I got to stay healthy. We got to get to the regular season. I'll find out who my quarterback is, once we can actually get the quarterback competition going, because what we wanted to do and what we wanted to bet on Washington was because, you know what? There's 3 guys trying to get a job. That means you're going to have a legitimate NFL starter in quarter 1, a legitimate starter in 2, and then a rookie drafted extremely high, supposed to be your franchise guy for possibly the 3rd and the 4th quarter. That doesn't look like it's taking its place right now. I'll take Cincinnati in this one. I'll lean on getting the points here.
It does feel like 3.5 might be too many points. But Tom Marino brings up a good point. He says, I lean Redskins. Keenum wants to win the starting job. Needs to learn the offense. He should get decent reps. Redskins' defensive front is solid. Both takes make sense here. Let's go to you, Whale Capper. Bengals, Redskins.
So I'm going to stay away from playing a pregame side or total in this one, but I'm looking for a Redskins second half, and it's specifically because, number one, I don't, as much as Keenum might want it, does he have the tool set? Does he have the understanding of the offense? Does he have the weapons to throw to do anything with this first unit against a first unit defense? I don't really think so. I think the Redskins are going to look just as sloppy, just look just as beleaguered on offense as we saw in the first preseason game. But I think it's kind of on Jay Gruden to try to turn the narrative around here for Haskins in this preseason and give him, kind of a boost of confidence. If he goes out and has another stinker, they asked him to do a lot. Like you look at the stat line, or you just look at a couple of the highlights of the negative plays that Haskins had, and you see like, wow, like he does not look ready. And I think I would be surprised if we see Haskins before the ship righteously starts sinking in Washington this season. Like maybe, I don't know, week 6 at the earliest, probably. But that said, you've got to start to get him a little bit of confidence. You can ask him to do a little bit less. They were really pushing him to force the ball downfield, to try to make some difficult reads. And I would guess that they flipped the script this game, and they try to make it a little bit easier on him. The second unit defense from the Bengals is pretty poor. We saw some. The Chiefs weren't even trying to score at the end of that game, and they couldn't help themselves but continue to rack up touchdowns. So I think Haskins comes in and turns the game around for the Redskins in this one, and they do a little bit better once they insert him into the lineup. So I'm looking for a Redskins angle here on the second half, and I won't be taking any action pregame.
Makes sense. It's an angle that makes sense. This Bengals-Redskins, 2 terrible football teams in week 2 preseason. Not something you want to really open up the wallet for pre-game. Man, okay, let's move on to Packers at Ravens. Ravens opened up at -3.5. That's long gone. Now there's -4.5, -5s, -5.5, depending on where you shop. The total opened at 40. Now there's 38.5, 38s, and 237.5s are now on the board at Bookmaker and Intertops. Ravens hadn't lost a preseason game since 2015. I mean, it's so interesting to see how much Harbaugh cares about the preseason. They've won 14 straight games. And Jackson played the entire first quarter. And to some extent, that makes sense. You want Jackson to earn everything that he's going to get. A whole first quarter, week 1 of preseason. I mean, you're sending a message to Jackson saying, you got to fight for everything you're going to get in this league. And I get that. And it's a Harbaugh thing to do. 2 scoring drives and 3 possessions. And they destroyed the Jaguars, Minshew. We've already spoken about that from a defensive standpoint. They just were all over him. But back to Jackson, 4 for 6, 59 yards, 30-yarder to Chris Moore. He looks good. It looks good. Then from the Packers' perspective, 39-year-old, well, first off, Deshaun Kaiser, he looked good. 8 for 13, 102 yards, touchdown. They look good in that game, beating the Texans 28-26. LaFleur, 39 years old. He felt good out there. He took it all in. Tim Boyle came in and also looked pretty good. 2 second-half touchdown passes. I mean, we sort of know what Kaiser's going to give you. Tim Boyle is a bit of a question mark, and I liked what he was giving. I liked it. I thought it was nice. And we have money coming in and in on the Ravens. I mean, at 5.5, it doesn't matter how much Harbaugh wants it. To me, I think you got to jump on the Packers at this point. I'm not saying that I'm going to do that as of yet. But Donnie RightSide, break it down for me. Packers at Ravens.
Yeah, looking at some of the interesting stuff coming out of Green Bay is it looks like Aaron Rodgers is going to get what the word they like to use, Jimmy, a quarter or so of action, which probably means show me a really good drive or two. I'm going to pull you out of the game, which lends me to believe that you could probably make a little bit of money and then say, you know what, let me take, because if it's 5 right now, I don't have the first half lines up. I'm not too sure if they're even out yet, but you're probably looking at a 3, somewhere in that range, 3.5, where I actually would really like Green Bay in the first half. If I'm going to get a quarter out of Aaron Rodgers, and then completely the opposite in the second half. You don't win 15 straight preseason games by saying, let's just see what happens out there and let's just have some fun. There's a clear mythology to what John Harbaugh is putting into play, saying winning matters, and even in the preseason. If I'm going to get a pretty even matchup in the first half, give me the points with Aaron Rodgers. Full game, I want nothing to do with betting against the Ravens, because I know in the fourth quarter, if that game is 17-17, 21-21, the Ravens are pressing and are going to try to win that game. When the other team's like, hey, let's just run a couple routes here to see if we can work this in and put something on tape. I like the Packers in the first half in this here, Jimmy.
I like that look. Yeah, the first halves aren't out as far as I know, but that look makes sense. That look makes a lot of sense. Capper John says, I smell a rat. I think Packers come to play. David Stewart says, Ravens -4.5. Should I jump on it now? And Tomor saying it's much easier to lay points in this preseason because games are higher scoring. I'd lean Ravens, he says. Packers at Ravens, whale cap.
Yeah, I mean, I guess 5 is too many for me to get involved in laying points here. But and it's worth noting that underdogs have generally performed pretty well to this point in the preseason. Everybody's kind of staying within a couple of points of the total, even if they're not outright winning. So I don't think this is a good spot to back the Ravens, especially after the lines moved out to 5. But Donnie's angle on the first half made a ton of sense. It's very similar to where I was going on this game. I kind of like the fact that the total's been bet down. I think we're going to get a deflated first half total, which sets up a nice angle to come in on that first half over. I think your point, especially about the second half of Green Bay potentially waving the white flag a little bit and Baltimore playing to win, is completely relevant. Green Bay let the Texans back into that game in the fourth quarter. Their second and third units on defense are not nearly as talented as their starters. And so, the Ravens could absolutely get some points late, especially if they are playing to win the game. I just am not interested in laying that many points. So give me a first half over here once we get a total. I'm probably backing anything under 20, and I'm taking the first half over here.
I like that look. In fact, the first half over with the deflated as the number's gone down is more appealing to me than the Packers first half. But both looks make a lot of sense. Let's go to our last game on Thursday evening. Raiders at Cardinals. Open Cardinals -3.5, now -3s everywhere. 3.5 hanging at Bet Online. Total open at 41, now 40s everywhere, but Heritage just dropped to 39.5. Peterman. It was laugh out loud funny for me to see Peterman and Gruden shine when nobody could care less. Unbelievable. Peterman scrambled for 50 yards. Raiders won 14-3. Now, we backed the Raiders first half full game. That probably added to the laughter. But Peterman comes in the third quarter, 9 of 12, 66 yards, led both teams with 56 yards rushing. If you remember him last year, the guy was spectacular in the spectacular is a little much, but he won the job. He won the job in the preseason. And there was I bet one of the games Peterman started last year foolishly. Peterman competing with Glennon, 17 of 25, 200 yards, but threw 2 interceptions. With Peterman and Glennon back there, you have some quarterback depth behind Carr. Kyler Murray, 6 for 7, 44 yards, 10 plays. I'm liking everything that he's saying in interviews. I like the way he's handling things. I'm getting higher on Kyler Murray as things go on. Hundley, 10 of 14 for 104 yards. And, Kingsbury, I've been watching Kingsbury interviews, and I'm liking everything I'm seeing from the Kyler Murray Kingsbury battery. Raiders at Cardinals. Donnie RightSide.
Yeah, it's interesting. We're going to take a look at this game here and talk about, the Rams a little bit last week versus the Oakland Raiders, who they didn't give a damn. And the Raiders came out 14-3, a little bit of a sloppy game. But I got to tell you, I think I still like the Raiders here. If you're going to be catching 3 in this game, we'll see where that line actually ends up. I think your point is pretty good, because the one thing that I always laugh at with John Gruden, and it's said so many times, that his favorite quarterback is the next quarterback that he's going to get. And for some odd reason, for years, since coming out in the draft, he loves Peterman. So I actually think he sits back in his office when he says he sleeps 2 hours a night, gets there at 4:30 in the morning, and just says, you know what? I'm going to dial up all the best stuff for Peterman, like the third quarter, and make him look great and really pump him up and try to get him going here. I like the Raiders in this game. I think they're going to be live game in this. I think this whole, hard knocks thing, they don't play harder because they're on hard knocks. But I just think John Gruden's putting a little bit more effort into this to say, look, we're going to be a winning franchise. Now's the time to step up and win. And you're right. They have pretty good depth for a preseason football game at the quarterback position. I think John Gruden's going to open up more of his playbook than what we're going to see from Cliff Kingsbury. Give me the Raiders in this one. I'll take them again this week, as that autumn wind is a Raider.
Yeah. Yeah. At 3.5, it probably should have been something that I jumped on already. Let's just go back to the spreads right now. Is Bet Online still hanging that 3.5? Because that's a pretty nice look. They are, but minus 125. You have to pay between 20 and 15 cents for that half point. That makes sense to me. You know, that makes sense to me. Just all
Sell
makes
it to
sense to me.
3.
Whale Capper, Raiders, Cardinals.
Yeah, I'd sell that. If you're interested in the Raiders, sell it to 3, get a better price, get it to like plus 100 or so. Like, yeah, the like we were talking before, like it's not as 3 is not as key a number in the preseason. You know, it's going to come down to missed extra points and, you know, who's going for 2 at the end of the game. It's not going to come down to who's executing on field goals, as far as I can tell you. So I don't have a problem at all selling from 3.5 to plus 3.5 to plus 3. You're going to capture value there on that sell. I would say I like Donnie's look a lot on the Raiders. I like a similar angle here on the under. I think that it's pretty clear that we're not going to see the dynamic offense that Cliff Kingsbury is capable of. He's going to keep that under wraps for the regular season. I doubt we're going to see much of Kyler Murray out there. So on top of that, you have a young, talented, a lot of first and second round draft picks on this Raiders defense. They're going to play a decent amount of this game because the Raiders' fortunes this year kind of go through their defense taking an enormous step forward. So I think you're going to see a lot of emphasis put on the defensive side of the ball here for the Raiders. So I like another underlook here. It wouldn't surprise me at all if we see a relatively similar scoreline to that Raiders-Rams game where the Raiders come away with the win and they really keep the Cardinals under wraps.
That look makes a ton of sense. I mean, Gruden loving every second these cameras are around him, and he's creating an energy of you got to fight, you got to be out there, you got to start winning and fight for these opportunities. So these second stringers, third stringers know that, with Gruden, if they see you doing stares after the game, he respects it, and it's ludicrous. It's just the way Gruden coaches. It's just like, man, go back to high school. Go coach a high school team. Tell the
what
kid,
a loser.
Yeah, what a loser. Go out to the smoke pit and yell at them. Because this just makes no sense in the NFL anymore. The NFL's changed a lot. And, I think they're going to be so bad this year. So bad. I think it's just going to be dysfunction city here. But right now, it's the Raiders' time to shine. Cameras are on. Preseason week 2. Why not back them at plus 3? That makes a lot of sense. The under does as well. And those are your Thursday games. We're going to break down the Friday games shortly. But looking back at this, the Jaguars still does concern me a little bit. I can understand backing them. The over in Jets-Falcons does make sense too. I'm wondering if I'm a little late with the move from 42 to 44.5. I understand why we don't even want to watch the Bengals-Redskins game, let alone bet on it. The Packers first half over, and also doubling up here, Raiders plus 3 and the under. Those are the most appealing looks after talking about these games with you guys. Those are my most appealing looks on Thursday. Let's move to Friday. Bills at Panthers. Bills opened at -3. It stayed. Total opened at 40, and it stuck there too. McCoy resting. Gore limited. Singletary looked good. He looked good. Star at Florida Atlantic. 66 touchdowns at Florida Atlantic. He looked good. I like it. A lot of excitement from him. Josh Allen came in 6 of 11, 66 yards over 2 series. He looked good. And then Kyle Allen and Will Greer, looked very good. And we had people in the chat saying that, and it was a mistake me backing the Bears. It felt like it was Greer's chance to sort of shine a little bit. Kyle Allen looked very good. 7 for 11, 76 yards. Greer comes in 9 of 16 for 77 yards, but a pick. 7-yard TD pass to Holyfield, put them up 13-10. Looking at these two squads moving forward, the more you talked about that I was sort of, in a sense, disrespecting the Panthers, it was more out of fear. And Whale Capper talking about, keep your eye on this team. It's more out of fear just because I find these Cam Newton-led teams tricky to back or to cap appropriately. But I like the Bills. I like everything that's happening in Buffalo. And I'm happy to own a over 6.5 ticket in my pocket. Let's go with you, Donnie RightSide. Bills at Panthers.
Yeah, when you take a look at this matchup, I mean, it's actually a pretty good preseason roster to go over when you're taking a look at those young kids that got a lot of time. When Cam Newton went down last year and got deactivated, some of those kids stepped up and played some pretty good football, and that continued in the preseason last week with the Chicago Bears. And then taking a look at the same thing, Josh Allen's still a young quarterback. They still want to get him reps. But look, you can laugh at Matt Barkley all you want, but he's been around the block. He's got that soft arm. He's a smart kid, knows how to throw the football around. And then you get back to the Tyree Jackson types when they come in the game. They're just trying to feel their way around the NFL. Give me the 3 quarterbacks, because I doubt Cam Newton's probably going to play in this game. I'll take the home team. I'll take the team with the 3 quarterbacks that have shown they can play in the NFL and spread that around for 4 quarters, even though I like what the Bills do. I think the Bills are coming to play and still coming to win in the preseason, but there's something about the Panthers. And in quarterback play in the preseason, I'm going to look forward to. I don't want a guy, because put it this way, in the fourth quarter of this football game, you're going to get Tyree Jackson. He's not ready for the NFL yet. He's probably going to get a really good crunch time look maybe in a close ball game, or maybe even a game where they're up a little bit or down a little bit, trying to come back in that one. And I don't want him throwing the football for me, trying to lead me to a victory. Give me some of the kids that have been around the block and have shown that they can throw the football. Yeah, give me Will Greer back there, showing out pretty well at West Virginia. He could throw it around a little bit. I just think the quarterbacks are a little bit better here from a backup perspective on that Carolina Panthers side. Give me the Panthers in this one.
Yes, and my fault. I said Bills opened at -3. That was my fault. Panthers opened at -3. I was very impressed with both Allen and Greer. I liked everything that I saw from them, and I can completely understand that take, Donnie. Whale Capper, Bills at Panthers.
Yeah, I think it's totally reasonable to be bullish on the Bills for this regular season coming up. I think they have super soft start to their schedule and a lot of positives going on about Josh Allen's development through this preseason process. So, very interested and optimistic about their potential, even to threaten for a playoff spot, to be honest. A lot comes down to beating the Jets week 1, though, which we'll save for another episode. This game, though, Bills heading down to hot, humid Charlotte, North Carolina, doing a couple practices before this game. Likely you're going to see some fatigue on these guys. You're going to see some guys with some leg cramps. You're going to see some guys who are really feeling the heat because they've been up in the nice cool conditions up in, beautiful part of the country in the summertime is upstate New York. It's a hot and sweaty scene down there in North Carolina. I think the Bills are going to be feeling the fatigue and feeling a little gassed in this one. So I like the look on the Panthers that Donnie laid out there. Let's see the Panthers continue their preseason momentum. Even though it's weird because typically the Panthers are the type of team I would fade in the preseason. I don't think that they're very deep. Although they may be kind of putting their depth in positions to shine, to try to get them some confidence. So it's an interesting scene there for the Panthers, but Panthers to me will be able to outlast this Bills team in the heat.
Yeah, I get it. Those are both good looks. Both good looks from both you guys backing the Panthers. Tom Marino says Bills are a very young team playing for roster spots. They should play harder. Tom Moore saying Carolina won't want to play Newton much in the preseason, coming back from a shoulder injury. I agree with both of those takes. All right, let's move on to Bears at Giants. Giants open at -1. Now the market's all over the place. There's -1s, 1.5s, 2s, and 2.5s. The 2.5 just popped up at Heritage. The total opened at 41.5. Now 42.5 everywhere, but a 42 at Bookmaker. Jay Peach came on my show and said, man, take the under in Bears at Giants, really believing in the under in this spot. John Mara, the owner, and I couldn't believe it, but said if Eli Manning started all 16 games and Daniel Jones didn't see the field during the 2019 season, that would be a success. And, John, go back to sleep because this is not that. If that happens, then what? Daniel Jones broke his leg in practice, and you guys are 0-15 moving into the last week or last game on the schedule. Jones hit all 5 of his passes. He looked good. Very good. I liked it. I was impressed. Now, I know it's just, one drive, but it's nice for him to get a little bit of confidence if he's going to be the guy moving forward. Let's see. Right Moneyline says, so happy for Daniel Jones after people here in New York area ripping him before even getting on the field. Only small sample size, but who cares? Can't kill a dude and not give him a little credit. I hear you, right Moneyline. He looked good and he's got to feel good about himself. Manning looked like a 38-year-old Eli Manning, 3 and out. Great stuff. From the Bears side of things, Chase Daniel was fine. He was not the problem in that loss. Week 111 to 1,320 yards, a TD. Tyler Bray looked bad. He looked bad. 8 for 17, 85 yards for the Bears. Montgomery, 7-yard TD, in his first start there. He looked fine. Bears at Giants. Donnie, how do you see this game playing out?
You know what? When you're betting preseason, sometimes it comes down to simple, thought process on what team you think is going to show up in this one. We know the Chicago Bears. They made the playoffs last year. They have high expectations, not really ramped up on a travel game to go to New York. We saw Maserati Mitch didn't even play last week when he needs the reps more than anybody. He'll probably come in and play a little bit here. You have a pretty good, decent backup with Chase Daniel. But when you take a look at the Giants' perspective, we take a, laugh at a lot of things that the Giants did in the offseason. I don't know how much it's going to pertain to winning on the football field once the regular season gets underway, but there's a huge difference from a team that is already here and ready to compete for maybe a playoff run or a Super Bowl run, as in the Chicago Bears, and a team that hears everything all the way through from the time that the Super Bowl ended, through free agency, through the draft. You drafted this kid, you spent all your money in this spot, you got a wide receiver in Golden Tate who you spent some money on, who's now going to be, ineligible for the first 4 games of the season this year, but they're still trying to find themselves, so winning still matters, and there's a lot of competition going on with the Giants. They performed very well for the quarterback position from Eli Manning. What did Eli only have? Maybe 1 throw in that game, but the backups did play well. I like the Giants in this spot because I think they're just trying to see who wants to compete, and that's usually a good thing for the scoreboard, as opposed to a team that says, look, man, just trying not to bang up my knee. I want to get ready for week 1. We got bigger things to worry about. Give me the Giants in this game, and I agree with that line movement.
Yeah, the line move makes sense, and Jones getting more opportunity in week 2 here makes a lot of sense. Tom Marino says Bears don't care about preseason, idling Giants and under. Whale Capper, do you agree with the market move from a side perspective? And do you agree with the chat going against the market move with the total?
No. Yes and no. Yes, I agree the Giants are the right look here. I'm not going to play the side. However, my favorite angle in this game is the over. This is a beautiful spot for an over. Not only did you have a perfect setup last week for an over with the Jets-Giants, where you need to get Daniel Jones to look good. You need to build a little bit of positive buzz for him and for that pick and for his confidence. You get to now come back and do it again, only now you get to push Eli Manning, because Eli Manning knows that the temperature's up a couple of notches. He can't go out there and just kind of hand off, do a deep pass and then get off the field. He's got to show that he is still the alpha in this locker room, and he's still the leader of this team. Like, he can't let the grasp of his starting quarterback slip amongst his peers in that locker room. So he's got to come out and play hard here. On top of that, I think Shermer still needs to develop Daniel Jones's kind of confidence in his ability to pass the ball down the field. He's going against the Bears, who he knows well from his time as the offensive coordinator with Minnesota. He knows this Bears defense and how to attack them. And the Bears literally are incentivized to rest their stars on defense because that's their bread and butter. They can't risk injuries to those players. So I think you see a lot of second unit defense out there, a lot of experimentation on the Bears defense here. And oh, by the way, Mitch Trubisky, they are legitimately putting the pressure on him with what they're saying to the media from that coaching staff. They are demanding more out of him. I would not be surprised at all if you see more passing from Mitch than is expected at this point. And all this sets up for just a lot of air yards in this game, not a lot of running. Even if they do go with a lot of running, the running back for the Bears, Montgomery, was impressive as heck in that first game. He was making some amazing moves and cuts. If he gets, if they up his workload a little bit to see what he can do against the first unit, he's going to look good, because guess what? This Giants defense, even if they put their best players out there, they stink. And this is going to be, a first half kind of a shootout here. I don't think anyone's stopping anyone in the red zone between either of these teams. As far as who we're expecting to see on the field in the first half of this game, this has overwritten all over it. So that's probably my favorite look of the Thursday, Friday slate, to be honest.
Wow, interesting. Going with that over. And Tom Marino saying Eli doesn't care. His contract is guaranteed. He's just playing for money at this point. I don't think so. I don't feel that way about Eli Manning. He has enough money. The family has enough money. I think he wants to still go out and show that he can play And I think that's what's driving him. I think he wants to show that he can still do the job. And that, because I don't understand why he wouldn't just, go off into the sunset at this point. Bears at Giants. The Giants feeling like the right side. And Whale Capper agreeing with the market move towards the over, even if the chat believing in the under. Let's move on to the final game on the Friday card. Dolphins at Buccaneers. Buccaneers open at -3.5. It stayed. Total open at 41.5. Now 43.5's everywhere, but a 43 still hanging at 5 dimes. Rosen, and when you see your starting quarterback, who we assume is going to, I just don't see them going with Fitzmagic here, but when you see your starting quarterback out there grinding away, grinding for 191 yards, 3 scoring drives in the week 1 of preseason, man, these Dolphins are going to be terrible. They win their exhibition opener Thursday against the Falcons. Falcons. Fuck, their little Falcons. God, okay, 34-27. But just seeing Rosen having to grind out there, 13 for 20, 1 pick, played half the game. It's week 1 of the preseason. The Bucs lost 30-28 to the Steelers. Winston went out there with the first-team offense. Touchdown, his only offensive series. 5-4-6, 40 yards. 9-yard touchdown pass to Godwin. And the one incompletion was a deep shot from midfield. I wonder, now Ryan Griffin came in and tried to break passing records in week 1 of the preseason, which was just a sign of how bad the Dolphins are going to be. But I'm starting to think that it's possible that after everything we've gone through with Jameis Winston, that maybe he understands about maturity a little more now. And maybe he needs to step up in a way. Now, anybody who watched the clip of him, eating his hands while he talks about eating W's, maybe won't want to bet on him ever again for history, because they'll just think of this guy with his hands in his mouth. I get it. But I thought that was an impressive performance in week 1. And he is at the age where if there are enough people around him, good people, and Bruce Arians is a good guy who I believe in very much, it's possible for him to take that next step because he has the talent. And I thought that was a nice performance week 1. Here we are, Donnie, Dolphins at Buccaneers.
Yeah, instead of looking at a side in this one, which I'm taking a look around there, 3.5's probably across the board here. I'm looking more at the over in this game, Jimmy, because if we take a look at the first games, Miami showed well and so did Tampa Bay. But forget about, the performances of what they're doing on defense or how the offensive line is performing. Again, we're going to get back to the quarterback situation. When you look at Tampa Bay, you have a couple NFL guys that are going to be rolling through in the first quarter, second quarter, third and fourth quarter. The same thing vice versa. You finally have what we were talking about with the Washington Redskins, where you wanted to see a quarterback competition. There is a legitimate one. Fitzpatrick didn't get that much play last week. That's going to increase a little bit more. They're going to want to get an extended look at Josh Rosen. And Rudock came in last week and played extremely well and actually picked up the victory for the Miami Dolphins late in that game. Line goes from 41.5, 41 up to 43.5. I think we're going to get points in this game. I think you're going to get some really good swings at the plate with some decent quarterback play against two teams that look like they're humming a little bit on offense. Give me the over 43.5.
The over makes so much sense after watching week 1 of both these teams. The over just really, really makes sense at this point. I can understand the market move going up. I could also understand backing the fish here, week 2, getting the 3.5 points. That seems like a nice spot to me. Whale Capper, Dolphins, Bucs.
Yeah, strong agree on the over on this one. And it was both coaches' kind of philosophy in terms of using every bit of the clock to run offense. Like both these coaches were kind of zeroed in on getting as many reps as possible for their offensive units. I wouldn't expect that to change at all. I think this is a pretty up-tempo game for a preseason game. And a little bit of in-state rivalry, a little bit of, up the Florida Turnpike bad blood here. I think this is a competitive game. I think this goes back and forth. And, I'm with you guys. Give me some over here.
The over makes a ton of sense. I think that line's going to keep climbing. I think it's time to get on that as soon as possible. And there you have it. There's 5 games on Thursday, 3 on Friday. And then when we come back here on our Friday show, we'll touch maybe quickly touch on those 3 Friday games as quick as possible. But then we have a nice 5-game card Saturday, 2 Sunday. And then we have the Monday nighter Niners Broncos that we will break down. And there you have it. there you have it. It's amazing how many shows we have under our belt before the season gets started, but you have to think this has got to help. This has got to help, man. It's got to help hammering these games so hard as we move forward towards week 1. And the two men in front of me, Donnie RightSide and the Whale Capper, if you want to party with them, Miami's coming so soon. I leave on Sunday. The guys get there on Monday. And man, Whale Capper is going to be on a ton of my shows. Donnie RightSide's going to be on every late show. And then we're also going to be doing the Audible on Tuesday and Friday. There's nothing I can imagine that will be more fun than rolling with you guys in Miami. I'm just so excited about it. But Donnie, great job today. Thank you so much, as always, for delivering the goods. Donnie, will you give some love to the great cappers in the chat? We have no show without these guys.
No, you're exactly right. You see the plane flying over. We're actually flying a banner right now that shows all of our love up there through all the cappers in the chat box right now. You just can't see it right now. But come down to Miami. This is what makes Sportsbook Review great. You can sit back. You can relax. You can bet games. We're going to games. We have the pool. We have the ocean. And we have a lot of good friends in the environment. I can't wait to get down there on Monday and have some fun. Jimmy, sit side by side to do shows with you, side by side with the Whale Capper to do shows. There's a lot of stuff to look forward to at SBRodds.com. The best part about it here, Jimmy, it only gets better. We're talking week 2 football in the preseason and having a good time. I cannot wait till the regular season on the Audible to be with you guys. Let's have fun, kick it off in Miami, and have a great time. I'm looking forward to it.
Oh, absolutely. And then we're going to be able to cap the game on Tuesday that we're going to on Thursday, Jaguars, Dolphins. And I can tell you, I will be intoxicated at that stadium. Whale Capper, thanks so much as always, man. Any final thoughts to Miami and to this great crew we get to cap with in the chat?
Oh, man, thank you guys for joining us as always. Hope to see a ton of you guys down in Miami. I can't wait to go. This is going to be a spectacularly fun trip. Only better way than spending your preseason getting ramped up for the regular season football is traveling to Miami and get some rest and relaxation and hang out with your capping buddies. So this is going to be a fun trip, and I can't wait to see you guys.
Yeah, it's going to be absolutely heaven. Thank you guys so much. Everyone in the chat, Joe Anisi chanting Miami. Look at these guys. We have guys in the chat that are going to be there in Miami. Joe Anisi, Big Ragu. Big Ragu is going to be live on Betting with the Bag while we're in Miami too. So we're all going to be on the stage together. And also, you guys, we're going to have a play of the day chair. That's going to be all done up. So the audience will come up one at a time and give us their plays of the day live, which is going to be so much fun to put faces to people's names. All these guys that we cap with all day. On behalf of Donnie RightSide, the Whale Capper, and myself and everybody at SBR, thank you guys so much. Truly, we have no show without your enthusiasm, your insight, and your jokes in the chat. That is week 2, Thursday and Friday of the preseason. We'll see you guys Friday at 4 p.m. Eastern. 2 p.m. in San Jose, Costa Rica. And I can't wait to get out of San Jose, Costa Rica. I'll see you guys soon.